there are so many people out there who are just fed up with the fucking game. And it's like, what do you do to get those people back?
Hello everyone, Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and as you guys are no doubt aware, I have a tendency to watch a lot of Asmongold's content because I have a huge nostalgia boner for World of Warcraft. Now, obviously I also watch some of his content off stream, and some of the stuff that I've seen recently, I've noticed him asking this question several times as he is reacting to videos from old World of Warcraft players that are giving their thoughts on Dragonflight, and the question is, what does Blizzard need to do to get some of these old WoW players back? And I figured I'd do a video talking specifically about that. Now, some of the points that I'm going to be bringing up were already brought up in a previous video that I did, but that video is like over 40 minutes long or something like that. Ain't nobody got time to watch all that, so I figured I'd do a bit of a smaller video focusing specifically on this aspect of the discussion so that, you know, more people will hopefully watch it, and maybe some of this will eventually get to Blizzard. Who knows? I highly doubt it, but I still like talking about it, so let's get into it. Now, the first point is something that I know for a fact is most likely never going to happen, but I'd still like to discuss it so that people are aware of the impact that this has in the game itself, and that is the WoW token. I feel like one of the things that Blizzard could do to really gain a lot of the old WoW veterans back would be to just remove the WoW token. Now, naturally, this is never going to happen because this is a huge source of revenue for them. They're basically selling gold directly to their players, and I understand it also combats gold selling from third-party websites and all of this stuff, but there's no denying the side effects of the WoW token in the in-game economy, and that is a massive inflation, which then becomes a huge barrier of entry for people that actually want to raid. See, I'm not even talking about, you know, oh, you want to buy some from the auction house and it's a complete pain in the ass. I'm talking about just, you know, basic things, because if you want to raid, for starters, all of your gear is going to need to be properly enchanted, and, you know, unless you have somebody who's willing to do that to you for free, you know, maybe you're part of a guild or something, maybe you're able to work out a deal. But ultimately, everybody wants to make a decent chunk of change, right? So what ends up happening is that things are just way more expensive because there's a lot of people with more money than brains, and they just buy WoW tokens over and over and over in order to buy the stuff that they need to keep playing the game. Despite the fact that they're already paying for a monthly fee, they then pay even more so that they can get gold in order to be able to do the things that they want to do in the game. Now, during Shadowlands, this was particularly obvious during the legendaries because, you know, you wanted to get legendary gear, and I remember most legendary items, you know, around the time that I quit playing the game were like 200,000 gold. Now, 200,000 gold for someone like me who's not particularly good at farming gold, like I can do my job in a raid team and I can do my job in a Mythic Plus, but when it comes to grinding gold, I find that particularly boring, and it just becomes a huge barrier to entry if you need 200,000 gold to get your legendary, and you know, that completely prohibits even experimentation, where it's like, well, you know, I'm only going to be able to buy one legendary, so I better go to Wowhead and figure out which legendary I need to buy, because there's no way that I'm going to be like, oh, I want to experiment with this one. What if I get it wrong? There's no way I'm going to go grind 200,000 gold again, because grinding gold in World of Warcraft's insane, especially because, you know, the bots are also flooding the economy with bullshit, and I'm terrible at economics. Here's what I can tell you. 200,000 gold was too much money for me to get my legendary item, and then on top of that, if you take into consideration that you have to buy food and flasks in order to be raid ready and enchants and all of this other stuff, I was basically begging my guild, which luckily were friends of mine, so they were willing to funnel some gold to me so that I would be able to actually participate in raids, because I have 2 children and I ain't got no time to be grinding gold in World of Warcraft. So personally, I feel like Blizzard needs to do something about the, you know, the inflation that the WoW token is causing. Now, here's an idea that I would suggest, and I'm going to be bringing up a Final Fantasy XIV comparison. I know a lot of people probably going to be upset. It's like, oh, here it comes, freaking Final Fantasy XIV, Andy, oh my god. And it's like, isn't Dragonflight basically stealing the mount system from Guild Wars 2? And is this not a good thing because it's an improvement on a system? Then maybe this is something else that they can do that could also help out. So in 14, the only real thing that you have to do once you get your gear, you don't have to like, you know, enchant it, slot it, whatever. You just have to put materia on it, right? You get your gear, you put materia on it. And the way that you get materia is there's these shards that you can get from doing certain activities in the game. One of those things is, for instance, if you do a leveling roulette with a roll that is needed, then you get the material to trade for materia, which then just allows you to enchant your gear for free. You put in some game time where you're helping somebody do a leveling roulette, which basically is a dungeon. You do a dungeon run. You get the materials. You go and you buy your material. And you can, I think you can even do this multiple times. I'm not sure. I usually don't have to do it more than once a day because, you know, I have plenty of the materials there because it's not particularly hard to grind stuff for materia and whatnot. But basically, even if it's just once a day, you can every day go and collect stuff to get your upgrades. So imagine you can do something that would give you a resource like a token of some kind that would then allow you to just trade for flasks and food buffs and enchants and other things in, you know, the same way that you would acquire gear. Like, that would be interesting, and it would give people a reason to run dungeons and filling up the, you know, the dungeon, the group finders and whatnot, so that everybody can run dungeons. And again, you could just have it be, oh, if you have the, you know, the needed role for the dungeon at the time, you gain additional benefits. And World of Warcraft already has a system similar to this, if I remember correctly. If you queue in for an heroic with the needed role, they'll give you like a little bag with extra rewards. You could do the same thing, except instead of those rewards being like, you know, random stuff, it could just be things that would actually be useful for someone who's trying to get into raiding. Because again, really do not underestimate the huge barrier of entry that there is to raiding in World of Warcraft right now in terms of food and flasks. Not even talking about enchanting your gear or potential legendary items and other kinds of upgrades that you might have to do, like jewel crafting, stuff like that. Like, not even talking about any of that, just food and flasks. Especially like on the release day of the raid, food and flasks is going to be like completely insanity. So unless you have a guild to take care of that, yeah, huge problem. Anyway, that was like one of the first points that I wanted to bring up. Next up is definitely going to have to be proper class balance. It's like, look, each spec should either be properly balanced or they should remove it. Like, they should just remove it. And in here, I'm not going to have a lot of experience because, you know, due to my lack of time, I only have time to play like maybe 1 or 2 characters, maybe 3, depending on how dedicated I am to that particular expansion. And usually the class that I always would like to play would be Protection Warrior. And guess what? Start of BFA, Protection Warrior, flat out not viable. Like, not even, oh, it's not very good. No, it's just not viable. And you guys might be like, okay, Rurikhan, you're just so exaggerating right now. Jesus Christ, what the hell do you mean not viable? Here's what I mean by not viable. I had done Mythic Plus dungeons up to like +8, like at very early in the start of the expansion, right? And groups that were doing Mythic 6 of the same dungeon that I had already done would still not take me because I was a Protection Warrior. Despite the fact that I had decent Raider.io score, I had already done the dungeon at +8. People were like, nah, we're looking for a Blood DK. Blood DK or maybe a Monk. So basically, during the start of BFA, I ended up having to play a Monk because the class that I wanted to play was not viable. Start of Shadowlands, guess what? Exact same thing. Protection Warrior, straight up not viable. So what did I end up doing? I played a Paladin. And it was just like, literally night and day. Trying to tank with a warrior, trying to tank with a paladin, literally night and day. And I understand that this changes over the patches of the expansion, but I think that's completely stupid and dumb. Like, what do you mean this changes over the expansion? Well, now they're buffed, now they're the best, and then the next patch, they're in the gutter again, because I had people that were still playing the game and talking to me about it after I stopped playing. They're like, oh, dude, warriors are like the best right now. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. And then like, couple of months later, I'd be like, so are warriors still good? And they'd be like, nah, dude, warriors are completely terrible again. It's like, dude, this shouldn't be a roller coaster of balance. Like, figure it out or remove the spec. I'm not even joking. If you're not going to bother balancing it, to be honest, I would rather that at the start of BFA and at this point, just remove Protection Warriors entirely at the start of BFA and at the start of Shadowlands. Just remove it, because I understand it for a lot of players. They'd be like, well, you know, this patch I'll play this character, this patch I'll play that character. Well, some of these old World of Warcraft players, we don't have time to play all those characters. We don't, because there's too much time investment required in order to learn your class, in order to play it properly, in order to learn the roots, in order to learn like your different cooldowns and all this bullshit. And it's like, you just don't have time to dedicate to like all of the tanking classes. At least for me, because obviously the role that I like to play is the tank. So I also expect that if I was to start playing Dragonflight, that basically my class would also be trash again at the start, and then eventually there'd be a patch where it'd be, oh my god, they're the best again, and then shortly after it's like nerfed into the dirt again, and it's like, stop that. Like, hire somebody or something. Like, isn't this your job? Like, make things work. Like, you can clearly make it work for other classes, make it work for all classes, like, figure it out. I don't want the full homogenization like we have in 14. That's not what I'm asking for. 14 is a very different game when it comes to that stuff, but just figure it out, balance it, and remove it if you have to. Like, I found it interesting that so many people were asking, oh man, why can't Evokers tank? And I'm like, dude, because they can't balance their tanks worth shit. That's why. That's why they're not putting tank on Evoker, and thank God. Jesus Christ, last thing we need is another broken-ass tank like friggin' Demon Hunters were when they were, like, at least during BFA, Demon Hunters was so incredibly busted. They're just, like, literally the best possible in Mythic Plus. It was ridiculous. Like, Jesus. Anyway, besides the point. Let's move on. Respect the players' times. No mandatory grinds. Like, this would be a huge deal. You can't have mandatory grinds like the Maw and Torghast bullshit. Jesus, dude, never, ever do something like the Maw. And you can be like, oh, but it was immersive because it was like being in hell. And it's like, yeah, it was hell. It really was. It was literally hell. It was so bad. That's the reason I stopped playing during Shadowlands, because they expected me to do about 20 hours worth of chores every goddamn week just in order for me to be able to keep up with doing raids in Mythic Plus, which is what I actually just wanted to do. I just wanted to do raids in Mythic Plus. I'm not even somebody who's trying to like do collectionism or all this nonsense. I just wanted to do raids in Mythic Plus. That's all I wanted. And it's almost like the game kept punishing me for wanting to do these two activities. It's like, you better go do the Maw, better go do Torghast, better go grind your soul ass. It's like, Jesus Christ. No, it's just complete and absolute garbage. I've heard that Korthia was even worse, so I don't know. I don't know what Zereth Mortis is like, but when I see, an upgrade that takes 18 hours in order to grind out, I'm just like, dude, what is this? Am I playing like some garbage-ass mobile game that I'm paying $15 a month for? Is that what's happening here? Come on. Get real. Account-wide progression systems. Again, this inside the respect the player's time. And I think that it's very important to point out that, like, I recently saw the interview that Taliesin did, which was a really good job, by the way. But the clickbaity titles that he posted on YouTube, which basically say, basically everything is account-wide. And I was like, what? That's not what they said. That's not what they said at all. Even in the Asmongold interview, this is not what they said. That, Ian's going like, well, we want to make some things account-wide, but some things can't be account-wide, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's a lot of talk that basically leaves the door open so that when players analyze this, when eventually Dragonflight comes out, like, hey, you said everything was going to be account-wide, you can go like, that's not exactly what I said now, is it? So it's like, they really do need to just say, hey, listen, account-wide for everything. Like, for instance, if I do a side quest, I never want to have to do that side quest again. If I do the main quest, like the main story campaign, I think you should have to do the story campaign at least once. I think that's normal. I think that's expected. But after you do the campaign once, you should never have to do it again. If you do a side quest once, you should never have to do it again unless you want to, at which point you can just have a button there that's like, oh, you want to reset your progress in this zone and like do the quests again for the rewards or something? Sure, go ahead. Who cares? What are people going to do? Farm gold through side quests? Is that something that people do? I hope not. Anyway, like, to give you an idea, I have a friend of mine who's usually my raid leader, and he does not really appreciate questing, leveling. He just likes the end game stuff most of the time, right? In 14, he's doing all the side quests. You want to know why? Because he only has to do it once. Never has to do it again. Because, like, he does a side quest once, never has to do it again. It's gone forever. In World of Warcraft, he would never bother with side quests. As a matter of fact, he basically did the most optimal. Like, he had one of those add-ons that you pay for, Zygor or some bullshit like that, where he basically skipped all the quests and just like burned through the thing, skipped all the cinematics, and I was like, Jesus, dude, what the hell are you doing? But then again, Asmongold kind of probably did the same thing. Didn't you like reach cap in 5 hours, something like that during Shadowlands? Anyway, Threads of Fate was actually an interesting first step for this, because after you finish the campaign once, you could, grab an alt and you could just do Threads of Fate. The problem was Threads of Fate was actually slower than doing the mandatory quest grind, which was, why? It was so stupid. And not to mention that even if you did Threads of Fate, you still felt like trash, because at the end of the day, you still hadn't really progressed with the zones. You still had reputations that you had to grind. And it's like, look, all reputations should always be account-wide. And the way that Blizzard could very easily just do this, it'd just be like, okay, for this server, let's just make it server-based, right? Which server you have most of your characters on or whatever. But basically, for that server, whichever character has the highest reputation in whatever faction it is, that's the reputation that counts for all the other characters. And if you have two characters and you're like, okay, but on this character, I'm exalted with Stormwind, and on this other character, I'm exalted with Ironforge, but not Stormwind. Well, guess what? When they apply the patch, boom, both characters exalted with both factions, boom, done. Just like, grinding rep is not fun. Grinding rep is not the point of the game. The point of the game is to do things that are fun. You're supposed to be having fun when you're playing the game, not grinding random nonsense. So respect the player's time. None of this like 20 hours of chores. I'll tell you what, I'm willing to give you 3 hours a week of mandatory chores. 3 hours a week, which is a lot less than the 20 or so that I was required to do during Shadowlands. It was about 20 hours. I remember adding it up like every day as I'd be doing the different dailies and quests and mythics and all of this stuff that I had to do in order to stay up to date. It was about 20 hours. I'll give you 3. And this is me being really, really generous, because in 14, I can do everything in 1 hour a week. And it's not even mandatory. I'm saying mandatory as in like, oh, cap out the latest tomestones or something like that. Takes me about an hour a week to do that, give or take. And it's fun. So that's the other thing. This next one, get rid of the Great Vault. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. I know that a lot of people seem to have been conditioned to believe that the Great Vault is this fantastic thing. It's like, you know where loot used to come from? From dungeons. You just do the dungeon and you get the loot. How impressive is that? You just go to the dungeon. It's like, oh, you didn't get the loot this time? Run the dungeon again. Oh, you didn't get it that time? Run it again. Just keep running until you get your loot. I don't understand why it is that so many people have this concept. And it's like they've been conditioned somehow to believe that, oh, if I get all of my loot, naturally the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to stop playing the game. If there's no loot to get, there's no reason to play the game. And it's like, no. Once you get your loot, that's when you can actually play the game. At least that's the way that I look at it. I don't know if people are just like, oh, my objective is to get this loot. Did I get the loot? Okay, nothing else to do in the game. That's not the way I look at it. I get my loot, and then I use the loot that I get because I'm better at tanking, or I'm better at healing, or I'm better at dealing damage. And now I can actually go and have fun, and I can do tougher challenges. That's the whole point of the game. You acquire the loot. What are you getting the loot for? To do tougher challenges. Like, loot should just come from dungeons. End of story. I don't even understand how this is a discussion at this point. Not to mention, Bellular even has a really cool video talking about the negative effects of the psychology of the Great Vault on its player base. Like, you want to know where my character was when I stopped playing BFA? Because I logged back in, like, shortly before Shadowlands, and, my character was in front of the fucking weekly chest. That's where I made the decisions like, fuck this game, I'm out. It was literally just, my character was just like sitting in front of the chest. I had probably just opened the chest, looked at it, and quit the game. And I guarantee that for a lot of people, if they do decide to come back to Dragonflight, their characters, when they log in, they're going to be in front of the fucking Great Vault. And again, I want to bring it up to people. I always bring this up. I was extremely lucky with the Great Vault, dude. During Shadowlands, like, first week got like the best shield I could have possibly gotten, second week best weapon I could have possibly gotten, third week best item that I possibly gotten, like for the item level averages and stuff. So I was extremely lucky with the Great Vault. I still think it's a piece of shit system because it's a piece of shit system. It's that simple. This is not a free-to-play game, and it shouldn't have free-to-play weekly loot boxes. We are paying $15 a month, or your regional equivalent, to play this goddamn thing, I don't want no fucking mobile mechanics on it. If you want to put mobile mechanics like weekly loot boxes on it, then remove the goddamn monthly fee. So remove the subscription fee if that's what you want to do. It's just that simple. Now, I understand that for a lot of people, you guys are going to go like, well, Rurikhan, because this is always the argument that gets brought up whenever I talk about the Great Vaults. Like, well, if you can just infinitely get loot from Mythic Plus, then Mythic Plus becomes a better gear acquisition method than raid. And again, people just start mathing this shit out and they're just like, oh, let me just optimize all the fun out of the video game. So let me explain to you how you can do this without it being a problem. You cap the item level that you can get from Mythic Plus at around raid item level. Like, let's say, at around whatever you can get from Mythic or something. Well, between Heroic and Mythic. Maybe not exactly Mythic raid, but like pretty high up there. And then the rewards for doing the higher keys become cosmetic. Because here's the thing, I think that a lot of people have the wrong notion that most of Mythic Plus key pushers are doing it for the gear. I don't understand how you actually think that people who are doing like plus 20s, plus 30s, you know, depending on which expansion you're talking about. I don't know what is the current keys that are being pushed at this state of the expansion because I haven't kept up with it. But it's like, you think that people who are going above plus 20, they're doing it for the gear? They're doing it for the challenge. Because they like the challenge. Because that's the reason why I personally like doing Mythic Plus. Because I like the challenge. I'm not doing it for the gear. But at the same time, I think that if there is gear, I don't want it to come from the goddamn Great Vault. I want it to drop during the instance run. Because they removed like at least 1 or 2 items that could drop from BFA to Shadowlands in order to justify the fact that they were improving the... It's like, no. The loot comes from the dungeon. Fuck the Great Vault. I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Dude, I'm so done with free-to-play mechanics. Just have the raids drop more loot. Have the Mythic Plus drop more loot. Boom, done. It's that simple. And then the higher keys, cosmetic rewards. Because that's what people really want when they're doing higher keys. Bragging rights. Take on the challenge. Do all of that stuff. Now, another point. Remove DBM and WeakAuras and everything that looks like, you know, all of the derivatives that you can think of. Bigwigs, whatever the hell. Like, all combat add-ons, remove them. Get rid of them. No excuses, especially now because after the Asmongold interview, Ian actually said, I mean, you know, we could remove the API entries. And I was like, you can? Do it. Do it. Because he even admitted during the Asmongold interview that they're designing raids around circumventing, you know, the add-ons, which is so stupid. It's just like you're literally designing worse quality content because of the fact that there are add-ons. Your player base is getting a worse content experience in order for you guys to fight this imaginary enemy of add-ons in a war that you could have won yesterday. You literally could have won this battle against the add-ons yesterday. You removed the APIs. Boom, done. And now I know people are going to come out and they're going to say, but I've been playing the game like this for 20 years. Have you thought about learning to play the game? Because if you have an add-on playing the game for you, are you playing the game or is the add-on playing the game? If the add-on is telling you, do this mechanic now in bold text words on your screen. Like if you have the voice from Karazhan from Moreau's fight going like, run, no, that was it Moreau's? No, it was the theater fight, whatever. Run away, little girl. The big bad wolf, run away. It's like, really? Really? These things should be communicated in the game, and you will get better raid encounters because of it, and it will actually lower the barrier of entry to raiding, because people aren't going to have to install 101 add-ons, 2,000 WeakAuras, and whatever the bullshit that you need to install nowadays, because it's completely and utterly ridiculous. Just remove all that stuff. Remove it. Get rid of it. I don't care. I don't care. I know that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, but the tracking of my buffs. And yeah, they're reworking the UI. This is actually the perfect time to do it. They're reworking the UI. They're remaking everything. This is the perfect time to do it. And I know it's going to be a rocky first raid tier if they do this, but you would have so much better content moving forward if they were to do this. The content would be so much better because you wouldn't have like 20, 30, 50 people all thinking about, well, if we do it like this, then the add-ons are going to do it like this. Like, no, just remove the add-ons from the equation. And then you can just think about it like, oh, if I do it like this, it'd actually be pretty fun. And that's the only thought process you need to have. And listen, I don't care about World First races. I don't care about the Mythic Plus Invitational. I don't care. I just care about the game being good. Do you think that, you know, World First guilds and all of this stuff, do you think that that is what causes success for the game? No, success for the game is for your average Joe like me to play the game. That's what success for the game is. For millions of people like me to play the game. Not like 10 people at the top that are playing the game. And understand, I think that they're incredibly talented individuals. I think they will still do fantastic even if you do remove DBM and WeakAuras and all this bullshit. I think they'll probably even like the game more because these are extremely talented players. They don't need this shit to play the game. They do it because Blizzard is fighting the war against the add-ons and the add-ons are fighting back, and it's just like a non-stop back and forth of bullshit. Just remove it. Just end it. Just finish it. Like, I'm sorry. It's just that simple. Like, especially with the UI revamp, I really don't see this being a problem anymore. And anyway, the final one is no more PTR. Get rid of the PTR. I mean, you can do PTR if you want to test, like, let's say class changes, class balance, and stuff like that. Sure, that I can see. But no more new content in PTR ever. Like, for instance, the content of Dragonflight. Nope. You don't reveal that to the players at all. Don't reveal the quest lines. Don't reveal the story. Don't reveal literally anything. Anything. No data mining. No nothing. You pay a team to QA test your game. Or you outsource a team to QA test your game. Pay somebody to test it. You got plenty of money. Especially with the Microsoft buyout being imminent. Y'all got plenty of money. Pay a team to test your game and deliver a product to the players. I don't want to see like 90% of the game being fleshed out in Wowhead before the game even releases, because that's fucking stupid. And I don't understand how people seem to have normalized this, but that is so incredibly fucking stupid. And that, as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, why New World could have been even more successful than it was at launch, because it was basically a figured out game, as Josh Strife Hayes put it so eloquently. It's a figured out game, which is usually what World of Warcraft is by the time it comes out. It's a figured out game. There's already a million guides in Wowhead by the time the game comes out, because everybody already knows, here's the mathematically most efficient way to play your class. Here's the talents that you need to get. Here's the things that you need to get. And that's fucking stupid. Like, why do you think that World of Warcraft Vanilla and TBC and Wrath of the Lich King were so cool? Because a lot of these things were not in place yet. Sure, there were some websites that were starting to get there. I think Icy Veins would... I mean, I don't know if it started around that time, but that's when I started seeing more people talking about Icy Veins during Wrath of the Lich King, particularly towards the end of it, maybe. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, but it's like that's when those websites really started picking up, and that's when the game really started losing interest, because everything is figured out. And it's like, no, just let the player base figure it out. Let everybody figure it out at the same time. Everybody figures it out at the same time, and then you can experience that joy of discovery that Ian Azakostas brought up during the Asmongold interview, because that is something that I personally find extremely important. But anyways, this was just a discussion about, you know, things that I feel like Blizzard could do to get old World of Warcraft players back. I would like to reiterate for those of you that haven't been watching the content or don't know, I will either, like I've said, I will either play Dragonflight when it comes out, or I will shut up talking about World of Warcraft, because I feel like if I do not play the content, I shouldn't be talking about it. So like, I talked about Shadowlands because I played Shadowlands. I talked about Battle for Azeroth because I played Battle for Azeroth. You usually don't see me talk about Mists of Pandaria because I didn't play that. So, yeah, I know that a lot of people are probably not going to like me playing Dragonflight. But again, like I said, if I don't play it, why the fuck should I talk about it? Anyway, that's going to be it. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit it up with a like. If you did not enjoy the video, hit it up with a dislike, even though YouTube doesn't give a fuck about that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.